Yeah, you just used a term there that we should make sure listeners are aware of. You said fiat money.
Yep. So that is the dollars that you use every day, or the euros that you use every day.
Yeah, so they're like they're currency that are supported by federal government.
Exactly. Yeah.
So crypto is uh, is supposed to be completely different from that kind of idea. So you've got fiat money, which is what we've been used to over the last centuries trading with, and then now over the last few decades, we've had this emergence of something other than fiat money for I guess the first time. I don't know. You're an economist. You might know the history of this. Is this like the first big alternative to fiat money? I mean, since like bartering.
Yeah. So there were like asset-backed currencies. So we used to have the gold standard,
Right.
and there the supply of money was limited to the amount of gold there was. So that's slightly different from fiat. Fiat really now
Right.
is guaranteed by the government and the society that backs it.
Mhm.
And then cryptocurrency is backed essentially by code and by that consensus mechanism that we started talking about. So we've never had something quite like this.
Cool. Well, so, I was describing this kind of proof of work thing as potentially being a downside to Bitcoin, the amount of energy being used. But then you described how there, it doesn't have to be that way. You could have another mechanism called proof of stake, which yeah, there's been this huge merge lately happening in the Ethereum space where Ethereum flipped over from being proof of work, more energy intensive, to being proof of stake, less energy intensive. So that to me makes cryptocurrency seem more viable as a currency of the future. It seems like it gets rid of one of the downsides of
Absolutely.
crypto. And so, yeah, could you go into a bit more detail as to what the difference is? Like, how is it that uh, that this proof of stake mechanism is able to be, you know, less than 1% of the energy intensiveness of proof of work?
Yeah. So the key idea in all of these kind of proof of systems is that you need to make it expensive for someone to attack the system.
Right.
And that's the core idea. And so
Got it.
in proof of work, you have to do more work than half of the other people because you need to have 51% of the ability to do that work. In proof of stake, you need to have 51% of all of the money, all of the Ethereum, or at least the Ethereum that is
Mm.
staked. And so what that means is that people, I'm sort of simplifying, but they put their Ethereum in and essentially say the next block in that chain, that's the right one. And if anyone wants to challenge them, they need to have more assets and say, actually, we kind of have more votes because you're kind of giving the assets they hold, each of them a vote. Um,
Mhm.
and that is what secures it. Because if they're wrong, if everyone else kind of shows up and says, no, you attack the system, they would then lose what they had put at stake. And so it's all about making sure that the system is hard to attack, and you can either do that by expending money or just putting money up. And so
Right.
proof of stake is just about putting money up rather than actually kind of burning through it in terms of electricity and computation cost.
Cool. So with these very, very large, with these heavily adopted cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and like Ethereum that probably most people have heard of,
Hmm.
it would be very difficult for somebody to accumulate, you know, more than half of the assets, all of the Ethereum assets, or do more than than half of the compute.
Yeah.
Um,
And by the time they did that, they would be so invested in the system that they probably wouldn't want to blow it up.
I see. Because that was going to lead me to my next question, which was then, is there a bigger risk of attack in a smaller or less adopted cryptocurrency? Like somebody could, get 51% maybe of some very small crypto thing. But then I guess there's still the situation that you just described is that like, well, now that person's really heavily invested. So why would they tank it?
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. Um, and I think, honestly, why does it happen? Sometimes people do it just to prove it happens. Like, why do people do denial of distributed DDoS attacks on,
Right.
various websites? Like,
Right.
hey, who knows? People will do things like that just for fun. But yeah, so it does
Right.
happen. Sometimes you can make some money off it. Sometimes people are just doing it to test the system. And one of the fascinating things about crypto is that everything is a bug bounty because there's a financial incentive to go and test the system, and because you
Mm,
can go and get some assets and so on. And so it's
right.
basically like the world's biggest bug bounty is just running 24/7.
Got it.
But
Super interesting.
that makes the system more secure.